Welcome to Tiny Travelers, brought to you by Baby Quip, the family travel podcast where we make traveling with little ones easier, smarter, and more fun. I'm Sarah, a travel-loving mom who knows the joys and chaos of exploring with little ones. Each week, we dive into parent-tested strategies, travel hacks, and honest advice on what really works with kids. So buckle up, grab your travel planner, and let's make your next family adventure unforgettable. Pack light, travel happy. Welcome back to Tiny Travelers, the podcast where we talk about traveling with kids and traveling through life with kids. I'm Sarah Huff, gear expert at Baby Quip and host of Tiny Travelers. Around here, we talk about family travel, baby gear, and how to make life with kids feel a little less overwhelming and a lot more doable. And today we are talking about the biggest stressor for parents when traveling with little kids, sleep. Because even the most fun trip can go sideways very fast when everyone is overtired. Courtney Foley is a certified pediatric sleep consultant. Her company, Everrest, helps families with children ages 0 to 7 build healthy sleep habits. And she's currently creating a sleep travel survival guide specifically focused on helping parents navigate sleep while traveling. We're talking hotel nurseries, routines, time zones, flexibility, and how to make trips feel more peaceful instead of completely exhausting. Courtney, welcome to Tiny Travelers.
Yay. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. This is a big, important topic for people. We can never talk enough about healthy sleep habits and sleeping, whether you're at home or while on vacation. And I think sleep is one of the biggest things that parents worry about before traveling, especially with little kids. Why do you think travel tends to throw kids off so much?
Well, I think why kids are so thrown off on travel is because kids thrive on consistency from 0 all the way through 7, which is what I work with. But even beyond that, like even adults struggle with our sleep because the routine is different. Our day to day looks different. We're usually out and about in the sun. We're tired. And without the proper rest, kids can get overtired. And that's when those meltdowns come. And as parents, we work so hard on planning the perfect trip. And we have, that vision of in our head of all of the family time and all the special things that we're going to do. And a toddler who's having a meltdown in the middle of that can be really upsetting because travel is supposed to be fun and making happy memories, and all of that can kind of get derailed with overtiredness. And so that's kind of my passion, is making sure that those travel times as families can be restful and relaxing for everybody, and be able to have space for them to still be able to get the rest that they need.
I love that. Yeah, because honestly, if you're overtired, if your kids are overtired, things just aren't going to seem as fun or exciting or even memorable. I mean,
yeah,
when you're overtired, you can't remember anything that happens.
Absolutely.
What are the biggest mistakes you think that parents make before or during travel when it comes to sleep?
I think, a lot of times our mindset going into travel needs a little bit of refining, of understanding that this is a time for flexibility, being able to be on the go and do all of those fun activities. But if we completely, take the focus off of the normal routine that kids have and are used to, that's when things can kind of fall apart. And so I think the mistake is either putting so much emphasis on sleep that you miss out on your vacation, or not putting enough emphasis on sleep so that then your kids are overtired and exhausted, and bickering and fussy, so it's kind of that happy balance.
With me?
Yes. So it's the tale as old as time. You want them to be able to be out at the ocean, but you also don't want to be trapped in a hotel room with a sleeping baby while your family's out having fun. It's that kind of fine line of balancing. It's important, but it's not everything. And you want to be able to be flexible and be able to have a nap in the car on the way, when normally at home I would say, keep the naps in the crib, but on vacation, it's okay to do that because that's just kind of the nature of the beast when you're on vacation. So it's that finding space for consistency, but also letting go and allowing yourself to know that even if sleep does get derailed, this isn't permanent. We fix things when we get back home. We get as much sleep as we can during the day with what our schedule allows. But yeah, so it's just kind of, you want to have the right mindset going in of knowing it's okay if things aren't perfect.
Something you said, like the mindset going into things, your mindset has to change when you're traveling with kids, as opposed to maybe you're traveling with like your girlfriends or whatever. Your mindset is completely different when traveling with kids. And not only when it comes to sleep, but sleep is huge, but just in general, you kind of have to let your expectations go.
Absolutely.
Kids are so unpredictable, and you really do have to be flexible with your kids when you're traveling because things are different, and kids, like you said, thrive on routine at home, but things aren't exactly the same when you're on vacation.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what actually matters the most when you're protecting your sleep, you're making sure people aren't overtired, and you're traveling? What's the most important thing to keep in mind for parents?
Yeah, I would say definitely right when you get there, setting up their nursery to feel as much as home as possible. So because they're in a new environment and things feel different, that can feel scary to them. And so providing some sense of security or things that feel normal to them is really helpful, because sometimes kids don't feel safe enough to fall asleep if they're unsure or uncertain. And so bringing things to them that feel like home will give them the comfortability to be able to fall asleep. So I call it like the hotel nursery, like those important things, the smells, the feels, the sounds that feel like home, bringing those and making it feel as familiar as possible. So, when we create a hotel nursery, you want to make it as dark as possible. You want it dark. You want to create the same sound environment. You want to keep the bedtime routine the same. Even though it's in a different place, those cues will be familiar to let them know, okay, this is a safe sleep environment for me. Even if the room, the house, or the country changes, the cues stay the same. And those cues are really, truly what matters. When they see the same sleep sack and they hear the same white noise and they're lying down in a familiar setup, like a crib or a toddler bed, their brain recognizes that it's time for sleep. And it creates a little bit more predictability for them in an unfamiliar place. So I like to recommend for parents to bring or rent blackout curtains, white noise machine, or some similar sound machine that they use from home. I recommend bringing sheets from home that smell like home. So it's the same detergent that they smell every day when they lay their head down on their pillow. Making sure that if a kid sleeps in a crib at home, they're sleeping in a porta crib or a pack and play on vacation. Bringing their sleep sack from home or their swaddle, making sure they have their favorite lovey or their comfort item, having a baby monitor that will allow you to step outside at the pool while they're inside safely sleeping, any outlet covers or extension cords, painter's tape I recommend. And I know that you like bringing painter's tape as a toy, but painter's tape can be really helpful because a lot of times there's random lights in spaces like the smoke detector or the alarm clock, and having painter's tape to be able to put a little piece of tape over that light to make sure it stays super dark is helpful. Mm-hmm. So just things like that of making sure that their environment feels as much like home as possible. And then their routine, if they're used to having a bath before bed, getting in their sleep sack, reading 2 books, having a glass of milk or nursing or something right before bed, making sure that same routine stays the same. because that signals to their brain that their big long sleep is coming. So that can be really helpful.
Oh, I love that you call it a big long sleep. That's cute.
Yeah.
And I've never heard of it called like a hotel nursery or, like a vacation nursery, but that is exactly what you're creating. And it's so interesting that you said, like, bring some of that stuff with you. Some of that stuff you can rent. You don't have to worry about bringing your exact sleep setup from home, because there's a lot of places like Baby Quip,
absolutely,
or even the hotel that you're staying at, that do have some sleep solutions for you already, especially if
absolutely
family friendly.
Yeah. And a lot of times how I emphasized on, if your child sleeps in a crib at home, to make sure that they're sleeping in a crib on vacation. Some families that I have worked with have prematurely put a baby who's not quite ready for a big kid bed in a big kid bed on vacation, thinking like, oh, it's fine. Or laying down blankets in a walk-in closet and saying this can be their sleep space. And it's really can be upsetting to them if they're not used to that. Putting a kiddo in a big kid bed before they're ready can lead to a lot of sleep challenges of them getting up frequently, knowing that they're allowed to get out of bed or able to get out of bed. They struggle staying in bed. So that's why I recommend, even if that feels simple, you're better off keeping them in this similar sleep space. And instead of a floor bed, just rent the pack and play.
Right. And something you said I think is so important too. It's good to realize that, I mean, I have to remind this to myself all the time, but your kids aren't giving you a hard time. They're having a hard time.
Absolutely.
And it's so interesting that you say, this can be like scary or overwhelming or too stressful or too anxiety producing if they're not in their normal sleep setup to fall asleep. So just like adults, you're overwhelmed, you're anxious, you got a lot on your mind, and it's hard to fall asleep. The same is for kids. I mean, they're just, like little tiny humans that have the same feelings, emotions, and concerns.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Sleep is a huge part of that. And a lot of times those behaviors that come with toddlers or with younger kids, a lot of it is from a lack of sleep, that they, I say it's kind of like their cup is already full. If they're tired, their cup is full, and so small things or small disruptions can have a big meltdown if they don't have space in their cup for more feelings, but a well-rested child has plenty of space in their cup, to be able to manage those emotions that come, or be able to adapt to a different setting. If you're well rested, it's much easier for them.
Right. And just because your kid's like an easy sleeper at home or whatever, doesn't mean that they're not going to have maybe some trouble falling asleep in a different environment, or, they're just overwhelmed by the day and maybe are having trouble falling asleep while you're on vacation. And that doesn't
absolutely
that things are ruined, right?
Oh no. When you get back home, you just start back to your normal routine. I recommend right when they get back home, wake them up at their normal bedtime, not letting them sleep in and, kind of slowly adjust. But if you just kind of rip off the Band-Aid and you wake them up at their normal time, you start from what you're used to at home, they will adapt quickly. And it only usually takes 2 or 3 days for them to get right back on track.
That's amazing. And what would you say to parents who they've done all this, they've tried creating the hotel nursery, and everybody's just not sleeping?
Yeah, I would say, well, one of the most important things for younger kiddos, like if they're on like a 2+ nap schedule or even a 1 nap, is making sure that their wake windows are staying age appropriate. So if you have like an 8-month-old baby, you don't want them awake for 5 hours at a time while you're go. So making sure that you're looking at their wake windows to make sure that it's developmentally appropriate for them, because they won't be able to sleep if they are overtired. So maintaining that so that they can be tired enough to fall asleep, but not too overtired that they can't fall asleep. Bringing up bedtime can be really helpful on vacation. I know we want to fill our schedules so full while we're on vacation with all the family time and staying up late playing cards, but it's really important to protect your next day if bedtime comes up a little bit so that they can get in bed and then you can have some adult time. And so if they're really struggling to fall asleep, the setting is as perfectly like home as you can. I would take a close look at their wake windows and make sure that they are getting the right amount of daytime sleep. I recommend if they're on a 2+ nap schedule that at least one nap, I call them anchor naps and I call them flexible naps. So a anchor nap is one solid nap in the crib or their safe sleep setting, wherever that is, whatever hotel nursery you have set up, and then allowing space for the others to be a flexible nap, whether that's in the carrier, that's in the car seat, that's in the stroller is okay. You know, that's the little bit of control that we're letting go of and leaning into flexibility while we're on vacation. But if they truly just are not sleeping, I guarantee it's because they're overtired from the lack of naps during the day.
Very interesting. And so, you know, we talk about flexibility but also remaining consistent. And I think, you know, parents sometimes feel the pressure, right, to keep everything exactly the same. Or they're just like, whatever, we're on vacation, I'm going to completely give up. It doesn't matter. We're going to get back to it later. So what's the right balance, do you think?
The right balance, I would really pay attention to, you know, kind of how I said of having one consistent nap during the day if you can. Or if you can't, you know, if it's on the go, you're doing excursions or things like that, bringing with you some type of sleep item that can help them fall asleep. You can bring their sleep sack and have them take a nap in their stroller. That's still a cue to them, even though it's not in the crib, that it's time for sleep. Or, you know, drape a muslin blanket over their car seat, put the travel sound machine on and signal to them, hey, we're going to sleep right now. It's in the stroller, but we're still going to take some time to rest, you know? So providing them opportunity like that while paying attention to their wake windows is important. But allowing yourself the space to be able to do that in a different setting is okay to let go of. But you don't want to just be out, go, and never give them the opportunity to be able to go to sleep. Because if they don't have any sort of environment to be able to fall asleep, they're up, they're walking around, they're not going to be able to. You want to be able to provide them with that opportunity to be able to sleep. So knowing that on the go is okay. You just want to give them as much opportunity as they can to be able to take the nap at the appropriate time.
I think that's so important because, you know, I think parents maybe sometimes feel like, oh, well, if they're tired enough, they'll just fall asleep in the stroller or they'll just fall asleep in the carrier or whatever the case is. But like we already talked about kind of earlier is maybe they don't feel comfortable falling asleep. It's different. You don't normally let them fall asleep in the car.
Yeah.
So bringing some of those comfort items with them, some of those sleep cues, just on the go can still signify, okay, it's time to rest. We need to like take a little break from everything that's going on.
Yeah. If you're at an Airbnb, you know, going inside, bringing them in, you know, out of an overstimulating environment. If you're in a stimulating environment, like a museum or something like that, taking them on a walk away in a space that feels quieter to them, laying them down or hooking them up in your carrier, making it a little bit darker for them so that they know that they've got the privacy, you know, to fall asleep, or draping a blanket, something like that, that'll help them relax.
I think that's such good advice. And something that I don't think I did when my kids were really, really little was take, you know, the Lovey or the sound machine or whatever, make that on the go kind of nap situation. That's smart.
Yeah.
I think another thing that really makes parents nervous is the time zones. I mean, adults get jet lagged. Adults have trouble, transitioning to different time zones. So that can feel really intimidating when you have kids. What's the best way to help babies and toddlers kind of adjust to these new time zones?
Yeah, the time zone I think of kind of like as daylight savings. Like we get stressed out with daylight savings coming, knowing that oh gosh, their internal clock is going to say one time, but the clock on the outside is going to say another time. Like, how do I deal with this? And so I usually recommend starting to shift them by 15 to 20 minutes a day earlier, 3 to 4 days before you leave for your trip. So that gets them a little bit closer to wherever you are traveling to, so that that jump doesn't feel so big. It's not quite the same when you're traveling internationally and you have like an 11-hour time difference, but we're just talking about like traveling across the country, like it's a couple hours here and there. Those long trips abroad, it's one of those, you just got to rip off the Band-Aid. You're going to have a couple hard days, but eventually they'll kind of adjust. But if it's just a few hours here and there, traveling east is a little bit harder. It makes it more challenging because it requires their bodies to fall asleep earlier. So they're in a lot of times, if they're not tired, it's hard to be like, okay, it's time to go to sleep. And it's like, but I'm not tired, whereas if they're just a little overtired or they missed their, normally they go to bed at 7, now they're going to bed in their internal clock at 8. That's not as big of a difference as bringing their bedtime up. So again, I recommend shifting 15 to 20 minutes earlier each day, 3 to 4 days before you leave. Because even just those small changes that don't feel like much from day to day can really help them adjust quicker when you get there. Traveling westward is a little bit easier because it's a little bit easier just to extend the day a little bit. So I recommend, again, shifting, but that one is a little bit easier for them to adjust. If you just show up, they adapt quicker to a west time zone transition. So, and then when you arrive to your destination, the fastest way to kind of reset their body clocks is light exposure. So in the morning, I recommend going on a walk, getting them in the natural sunlight as quick as possible. When they are exposed to light, their bodies naturally start producing cortisol, which stimulates them and wakes them up. Dark, they start producing melatonin naturally. So that's why we want our sleep space super dark. Their bodies start developing and producing melatonin. So cortisol, getting them out in the light right when they wake up is really helpful for them to realize that we're in a different time zone. But yeah, I recommend following the local time zone. Some people will say to themselves, okay, we're going to travel, but we're still going to go off of our clock at home. I recommend adjusting to the time zone of wherever it is that you're traveling to and just making those shifts a few days prior.
And I bet that that's probably helpful advice for adults too. I mean,
yeah,
we're all just trying to do our best, but just shifting ourselves,
yes.
Both before and after,
yes,
help you kind of adjust. What do you think parents realistically are going to be faced with those first few days into a new time zone?
Yeah, I would say probably a little bit more sensitive kiddos, maybe a little bit more crying, a little bit of overtiredness, a little bit of bedtime struggles, especially as they're adjusting to that new space. But just being flexible with your kids and acknowledging and validating them that this is different, and just because it's different doesn't mean it's bad. Giving them the space to feel those emotions and to adjust, and just being sensitive to them, like how we talked about, of being in a different space can be scary to them, especially if they're at age where they don't understand what vacation is. Like all of a sudden I'm just in this new
vacation.
I know, but if you have this 6-month-old baby that doesn't understand, has never seen the ocean, has never felt sand before, that's scary to them. Or if the weather is super different, that's pretty overwhelming to them. So just giving the kiddos grace and letting them understand that this is okay, that this is fun. But yeah, just being the whole spirit of flexibility is what we're leaning into.
Got it. And then, parents try their best, right? We're trying to keep up with the naps and the flexible naps and the anchor naps and making the bedroom all perfect to fall asleep. But there's probably going to be a moment on a vacation where you've realized, okay, we've done too much. We pushed too far. What are some of those early warning signs for overtired kiddos?
Yes. Sometimes if they are overtired, some kiddos, like toddlers, it actually can appear as they're really like cuckoo crazy. Like they are running up and down, they're acting silly morning and you're drinking Diet Coke. That's kind of how a toddler will appear of like, you're like, what is going on? Why are you throwing everything and making all these silly sounds? They can appear hyperactive. That's the word I was looking for. They're hyperactive. They're hyperactive. Woo, took me a minute to get there. They're hyperactive, whereas other kiddos, they start rubbing their eyes, their eyebrows get red, they are fussy. So you just kind of have to know your kid. My daughter, her eyebrows get red and I see it and I'm like, all right, we got to go immediately. We got to put you to bed so that she doesn't get overtired, because once they have tiptoed into the overtired, it can be a lot more difficult to get them to fall asleep. So you want to just be watching closely and knowing that on vacation, they might get tired quicker, being out in the sun, being active, being, swimming, things like that. They're go, 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 go. That you really just got to pay attention to those age appropriate wake windows and try not to allow them to tiptoe into the overtired, because that's when the meltdowns come. So if you can offer them a nap, either an anchor nap or a flexible nap at that time or at that sleepy cue, that can avoid the nap downs or the meltdowns and keep everything more peaceful.
And before we wrap up, you're putting together a practical guide for parents who,
yes,
if you're traveling, this is going to be like your go-to for sleep travel advice.
Yes.
What are your top sleep products or tools when you're traveling?
Yes, I would say definitely like what I've talked about, the sound machine, the sleep sack. The crib is most important. Making sure that you have a good stroller that can kind of lean back. All of those things I know can be found on BabyQuip, and things that you don't have to worry about. Sometimes you're like, forget it. Like, we'll just make it flexible when we get there. That's kind of important. And those are things that if you're worried about bringing it, just rent it. So I would say those. In my guide, it goes through all those what ifs, like, what do I do if this happens? What do I do if this happens? It gives you step-by-steps on how to turn a hotel into a nursery, step-by-step how to give them proper on-the-go naps, keeping sleep consistent. I have a whole section on TSA rules and regulations with traveling with kids, down to, what can you bring and check versus what should you probably rent. I have car nap travel tips. I have tips on keeping kids happy while they're awake and a whole guide on age-appropriate wake windows. I have age-specific packing lists and how to reset once you're at home. So all those things are included in my guide. It'll be coming out. It should be coming out on June 1st, 2026.
June 1st.
So it'll be here. It'll be here anytime. Yes.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Courtney, I loved this conversation because it does feel like with the right kind of guide and the right materials, the right tools, travel with little kids can feel less intimidating and more manageable because sleep is a huge factor. Before we wrap up, where can listeners find you and your sleep travel survival guide?
Yes, my Instagram is everrestsleepco.com or Everrest Sleep Co. And then my website is www.everrestsleepco.com. And there you can find all sorts of my sleep guides. I have nap survival guides. I have my travel survival guide. And then I also work one-on-one with families to be able to help get their kiddos sleeping through the night. So I do sleep coaching and sleep training. I don't recommend doing that on vacation, but once you're home, and you're settled, if things get derailed, you can work with me one-on-one, and we can help work out the kinks and get your kiddos sleeping through the night.
Amazing. And all of those links will be in our show notes, so you can take a look there. Thank you so much for joining us. And if this episode helped you feel a little bit more confident about traveling with your kids, especially when it comes to sleep, send it to a friend who's getting ready for a trip and probably stressing about bedtime already. Make sure to subscribe to Tiny Travelers for more conversations about family travel and navigating life with kids. Until next time, safe travels and hopefully restful sleep wherever you go. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Tiny Travelers. I hope today's episode gave you the inspiration and practical tips to make your next family adventure easier, stress-free, and more fun. If you loved today's episode, head over to the show notes for promo codes and exclusive resources to help you plan unforgettable trips with your little ones. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Happy travels, and I'll see you next time.